The Jedi have always been seen as the ultimate force of good in the galaxy. They stand tall in their robes, wielding their legendary lightsabers, and speaking of balance and justice, they are worshipped as noble warriors, defenders of the innocent, and the last hope against the dark. But what if that was never the full truth? What if the Order were not as different from their enemies as they wanted the galaxy to believe? Look past the shining armor of their reputation, and cracks begin to show. The Jedi trained children from birth, stripping them of attachment, forcing them into obedience, and demanding that they follow orders without question. They decided what was right and wrong, not based on fairness, but on their own rigid beliefs. The Sith did the same, only they never pretended otherwise. The Inquisitors, the Jedi's sworn enemies, were once Jedi themselves. And if their fall was so easy, does that not prove how thin the line between them truly was? For all their wisdom, the Jedi feared one thing above all else: choice. They feared the idea that one could wield power and not be bound to their rules. They called those who strayed lost, corrupted, broken. But the Inquisitors were not mindless monsters. They were the result of the same teachings, the same discipline, the same indoctrination. When they fell, they did not become something new. They simply embraced what the Jedi forced them to suppress. And that is the uncomfortable truth that no one wants to admit. History is written by those in power, and the Jedi were masters of controlling the story. They cast themselves as heroes and their fallen as villains, never stopping to ask if the roles were truly that simple. But actions speak louder than words. The Jedi hunted their own who stepped out of line, erased those who questioned them, and justified their destruction as necessary for peace. The Inquisitors did the same. The difference was that one side called it justice, the other called it war. But the methods were identical. In this video, we will strip away the illusion. We will break down the ways in which the Jedi and the Inquisitors were not opposites, but reflections of each other. We will expose the truth that the Jedi refused to face and uncover how their so-called righteousness was no different from the very darkness they swore to destroy. The Jedi believed they were the guardians of peace, yet they wielded the same power as their enemies. They held their lightsabers high, striking down those they deemed threats without hesitation. They called their cause justice, but justice is just another word for control. If a person did not submit to their ways, they were cast aside, labeled dangerous. The Inquisitors were once Jedi trained in the same ways, molded by the same discipline. The only difference was who gave the orders. The Jedi Council dictated morality, deciding who lived and who died, while the Inquisitors followed the will of the Sith. In the end, both were just enforcers of a doctrine. They told themselves they were different, but their actions said otherwise. The Jedi never questioned their own power. They sat in ivory towers, calling themselves keepers of balance, but their balance came at the cost of free will. They refused to let people choose their own paths. To them, there was only the Jedi way, or the path to destruction. That kind of thinking does not make protectors, it makes tyrants. People fear the Inquisitors, but they should fear the Jedi just as much. They erase identities, they strip away emotion, and they create warriors who do not question their orders. A Jedi who falls to the dark side does not change who they are, they simply reveal what was always there. A weapon does not care who wields it, it only knows how to strike. A Jedi does not fight for themselves, they fight for the Order. That is what they are told from the moment they begin training. They are expected to obey without question, to suppress any doubt, to let go of anything that could make them hesitate. The Inquisitors live by the same rule. They do not act as individuals, they serve something greater, something absolute. The Jedi say they value freedom, yet they do not allow their own members to make choices. They strip them of attachments, demand unwavering loyalty, and punish those who stray. The Inquisitors follow the Sith, but at least they are honest about it. The Jedi disguise their chains in words like duty and discipline, but a cage is still a cage. Some would argue that Jedi and Inquisitors stand on opposite sides of morality, but morality is just perspective. The Jedi tell their younglings that the dark side is evil, but what is evil if not the fear of losing control? The Inquisitors were not born in darkness. They were led there by the same teachings the Jedi hold sacred. When everything is stripped away, they are brothers in all but name. Look into the eyes of a Jedi Knight, and then into the eyes of an Inquisitor. You will not find hatred, nor will you find peace. You will find the same emptiness, the same absence of self. They are tools, sharpened and refined, waiting for the next war to call them forward. Whether they fight for the Republic or the Empire, the result is the same. The Jedi speak of betrayal as if it is always one-sided, as if their enemies alone have turned against them. But they do not speak of the betrayals they have committed. They do not speak of the younglings cast aside, the knights abandoned in war, the masters who were left to die. They break their own when it suits them, just as the Sith do. The Inquisitors are seen as fallen Jedi, as if their fall was an unnatural thing. But what if the fall is inevitable? What if the Jedi create their own darkness, then refuse to acknowledge it? They mold their students into warriors, send them to war, then condemn them when they struggle with the weight of it. They act surprised when their own become their enemies, but it was always destined to happen. Anakin Skywalker was the greatest of them, yet he was cast down for wanting to save the ones he loved. Ahsoka Tano fought for them, yet she was abandoned the moment doubt was cast upon her. Count Dooku questioned their ways, and for that, he became a villain. These were not failures of individuals, they were failures of the Order itself. The Jedi have never needed the Sith to destroy them. They do it on their own. They plant the seeds of doubt, they break the ones who trust them, and they leave their own to rot in the name of balance. The Inquisitors did not emerge from darkness, they were pushed into it, and once they were there, they found what the Jedi had always denied them. The Jedi claim they are defenders, yet they have waged wars. They claim they are peacekeepers, yet they have taken countless lives. They say they serve the Force, yet they bend it to their will. If the dark side is corruption, then what do you call an order that justifies its own hypocrisy? The Inquisitors are called monsters, but monsters do not lie about what they are. They do not pretend to be righteous. They do not hide behind noble words. The Jedi tell the galaxy they fight for good, but good is just a mask. Beneath it lies fear, pride, and the arrogance to believe they alone know what is right. Both Jedi and Inquisitors serve masters who control them. One follows the light, one follows the dark, but both are bound by chains they refuse to break. A Jedi who kills a Sith is celebrated. An Inquisitor who kills a Jedi is condemned. The actions are the same, only the banners they serve make them different. Perhaps the greatest deception is the illusion that these two groups are separate, but they are reflections of each other, walking different paths to the same destination. A Jedi who lives long enough will see it. Some accept it and leave, others refuse and fall. Either way, the truth cannot be ignored forever. The Jedi claim to be free, but they live by a doctrine that dictates their every move. They claim to follow the will of the Force, yet they refuse to let the Force guide them freely. The Inquisitors serve the Sith, but at least they acknowledge their servitude. The Jedi wear their chains like robes and call them wisdom. A Jedi is told that emotions lead to darkness, that love leads to suffering, that attachments are a weakness. But is it not a greater weakness to deny one's own heart? The Inquisitors were given a choice, and they chose to feel. They chose anger, pain, and passion, but at least they chose. The Jedi are denied that from the very beginning. To be a Jedi is to live in fear. Fear of attachment, fear of failure, fear of themselves. They claim to fight for peace, yet they live in a constant war with their own emotions. The Inquisitors do not fear what they are. They have embraced what the Jedi fear most, and for that, they are seen as lost. But what if they are not lost? What if the Jedi are the ones who have lost themselves, the ones who have silenced their own hearts, who have become blind to their own suffering? The Jedi do not reject the dark side because it is evil. They reject it because it forces them to acknowledge what they truly are. It is easy to see the Inquisitors as villains and the Jedi as heroes. That is the story the galaxy is told. But the line between them is not as clear as people want it to be. The Jedi were not always noble. The Inquisitors were not always evil. They were the same once, and in many ways, they still are. The Jedi speak of justice, yet they have committed injustices. The Inquisitors speak of power, yet they were powerless before they fell. One side rules through order, the other through fear, but both exist only to serve something greater than themselves. Neither side is truly free, and perhaps that is the greatest tragedy of all. There was a time when the Jedi were not warriors, when they were truly keepers of the peace. But that time has passed. Now they fight wars, they dictate morality, they decide who is worthy to live, and who must fall. The Inquisitors may have betrayed them, but the Jedi betrayed themselves long before that. In the end, it does not matter what side one stands on. Jedi, Inquisitor, Sith, Republic, Empire, they're all bound by the same cycle. The names change, the banners shift, but the war remains. Until someone chooses to break it, history will keep repeating.